candidates. Today we want to look at an area in poetry that before we begin, I want to remind you I'm Mr. Mwong. Now in poetry, we want to look at how to demystify poetry. That is what we want to concentrate on today. Now, first of all, we need to understand the background to understanding poetry. Poetry is an area that is tested in paper 2 and paper 1 as well. However, in paper 1, we test performance. In paper 2, we test understanding. Now, there's a writer that I like that defines poetry as the best words in their best forms. Most students shy away from poetry because it is not a straightforward story. It is not a sentence, it is not a novel, it is not a play. And sometimes they can't make head or tail from what we have. Now, in order to do well in poetry, a candidate needs to learn something called explication, which is line-to-line analysis. And in doing this, we candidates should learn to pick possible clues. Now, we have said that poetry is the best words in their best forms. So it means like somebody speaking the best of what you have said the whole day. And therefore, you are expected to come up with a story or understand the direction that kind of poem is talking about. And when we talk about possible clues, these clues will finally help us in making an informed or guided guess. Now, look and pay attention to the heading as well as the body. Now, sometimes students concentrate on the body of the poem and leave out the heading. The heading is equally important. Two common aspects that will lead to a better understanding of poetry include: one, a candidate, after reading a poem, a candidate should be able to identify the persona, if the persona is. That does not mean that all the poems have a persona. There are poems that do not have a persona, and therefore that's why we are saying if the persona is there. Then number two, what the poem is about. This is actually key. Every poem has a message. There's a reason why the writer goes into writing a poem. And this is answered in two ways. One, we accept what we call the summative approach, and we also accept the thematic approach. There is an elaborate outlook of that. When we talk about the summatic approach, this is what we want the candidate to have in mind. One, before you attempt that area, a candidate should be able to identify the persona, and we have said where applicable. Number two, identification of the message. We have talked about the message earlier. Then number three, the persona's feeling towards the message. So this must be captured in adjectival. So we are talking about the persona and what is his feeling towards the message. Then we'll talk about the illustrations of the feeling. Now, in the thematic approach, which is another alternative, the candidate is expected to cite the theme. In the poem number two, the candidate is also expected to illustrate the theme that is identified in one. Now, we want the candidate to know that the extent to which this question is answered is pegged on the marks. The illustration will be dependent on the marks allocated to the question. And this question sometimes attracts 3 or sometimes it attracts 4. That's why we have that rejoinder. Now let us look at this sample poem. Mother parrot advise her children. This is a poem that is done by somebody called Ganda and translated by A.K. Nyabongo. And the first stanza says, "Never get up till the sun gets up, or the mist will give you cold. And a parrot whose lungs have once been touched will never live to the court. So this is also important to paraphrase. This is actually a message. This is a warning that the mother parrot gives to its children, that they should not get up until the sun gets up. Otherwise, they will catch cold, and when they catch cold, then it will affect their lungs, and their chances of survival will be minimized. Our second stanza: never eat plants that are not quite ripe, for perhaps they will give you a pain, and never dispute what hornbill, or you never dispute again. So again, another warning that parrots are not supposed to eat plants that are not ripe, because this will finally lead them into pain. That parrots are supposed to check the hornbill's warning seriously, because if they don't do that, then they'll never live to see the day. Never despise the power of speech. Learn every word as it comes. For this is the pride of the parrot's race, that it speaks in 1,000 tongues. So again, this is a warning on what to do in order to survive. So in essence, we are talking of a parrot that is imparting a message of survival to its children. Now let us look at these sample questions to see if we can go about those two key areas in poetry. Now in this case, for instance, if the candidate gets a question, who is the persona? In most cases, this is a question that will be given 2 marks. And this is the right answer that we are supposed to give. And the scoring points are also given. The persona is mother parrot. And where do we get that? At the heading. And that's why we said the heading is as good as the body. Mother parrot advise her children. So you can once you give that, don't trouble yourself paraphrasing. Just go to the point, because that is the reason why you're given a poem to work with. And lift the parts of the poem that illustrates the identification that you have made. Mother parrot. So by doing that, you'll have earned your second mark. So the first mark is identification that must come from your own analysis. The second bit is an illustration which must come from the poem. Or there's another line in the first stanza that talks about and a parrot whose lungs are. So this is also pointing to us that the mother parrot is the one speaking. Now number 2 is about what is the poem about. 3 marks, and we said that sometimes it can be given allocated 4 marks. For this poem, the poem is about a parrot. We have identified the persona, a mother parrot, and what is the first scoring point is at the feeling. The mother parrot who is cautious to his children about the dangers of exposing themselves to colds and other things that are injurious. So the first score is at the word cautious. Then the second score is at the word the consequence, the plight of the effect of cold on the parrot, injurious to their safety. And then if the question is allocated 3 marks, like we have, then we go to that any line that points to this caution, which is the adjective. And we have a sample 9, never get up till the sun gets up, or never eat plums that are not quite ripe. So we have said that there are 2 ways to going about this question. What we have here is what we call the summative approach. If you look at this summative approach, we have identified the persona, we have the feeling, and we have the message. Then the next bit of it is the illustration. And I want you to note that even in the summative approach, identification of the persona alone does not score. So you have to bring in the feeling, and the word cautious is key, and we are talking about the dangers, and finally the illustrations. If the marks are 3, then we'll have 1 illustration. If the marks allocated is 4, then we'll have 2. Now, on the other hand, candidates can also decide to go for the thematic approach, and we have labeled that. And here the candidate needs to identify the theme in the poem. The dominant theme in the poem for this case is plight of the young parrots. And what tells us their plight? The line, never gets up till the sun gets up. One illustration, and the effect is they will give you cold. Or, never eat plants that are not ripe. Why? They will give you a pain. When a candidate does this, then at this point where the theme is mentioned, the marking is a bit different in the two approaches. At the thematic approach, once the theme is identified, then straight away a candidate gets double mark. Then if the question is 3 marks, then that should be the third mark. If the question is allocated 4 marks, then that is how to earn the 4 marks. Now, in summary, we are saying that in poetry, we need to do the following. 1, we need to identify the clues in the poem, because a poem is not a sentence, and therefore it may not make sense by the end of the line. Number 2, by the end of a stanza, paraphrase each and every stanza and get the message, and where possible, write the message in pencil beside the poem. Identify the persona where necessary, identify the feeling, and identify the illustrations and put them in the manner we have guided. Otherwise, we hope that you are doing a lot of follow-up through revisions in the materials that we give online and the ones that we get elsewhere. Thank you indeed.